Very warm welcome and very good afternoon to everyone. Today we are having a special speaker. Johnson Ooi is one of the founders of Epic Homes, which is a social entrepreneurship project. And it's a very interesting setup because they go and build homes for people who don't have homes, and they do it in a very interesting way in a very short period of time. Johnson is also a graduate of Taylor's University, so he's one of our alumni, and we are very proud of him. I hope that he was an engineering graduate, but he's not. He actually is a graduate from our School of Communication. And I'm very glad, happy, and proud to have him with us today to speak to you about his experience as a social entrepreneur. So please join me in welcoming Johnson Ooi.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I guess I won't be using the mic.
No, you are connected, but you need to shout so that these people can hear you.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry about the delay earlier. I think the file was pretty huge. But thank you so much for having me. My name is Johnson Ooi. Like Professor Mushtaq said, I am a former graduate, but sadly not from the School of Engineering, from the School of Communications. And that's a bit weird as well because we're talking about building homes. But I guess that's really what entrepreneurship is all about. I think to me, I never started this with trying to be an entrepreneur in mind. I think being an entrepreneur was something that intimidated me, that was quite far out. But I realized that to be an entrepreneur, it wasn't as mysterious as it is. And it kind of just, this adventure just led me to where I am today. And some people call me a social entrepreneur, some people call me an activist. But never mind all that. What I wanted to share with you is before all that, what really matters is why you're doing something. I think in entrepreneurship or in anything in life, I suppose some of you think that, oh, we're engineers. You know, we're going to be engineers. We're going to be just building stuff. We're going to be calculating things. What has entrepreneurship got to do with me? But I'm of the belief that entrepreneurship is really just simply problem solving. It's just glamorized. It's really just problem solving at the end of the day. But what I found that at the end of the day, in terms of problem solving, even engineering problems as well, what's most important is asking why and finding out why exactly you are doing what you're doing or you want to do what you're doing. So before we go into the why, I'll talk about the what. So how many of you have heard about Epic Homes? One, yes. That's because I know Mark. Thanks, Mark. So yeah, no worries. So I suppose I'll show you what Epic Homes is.
Because we are having some technical issues, so Yvonne is working it out. So Yvonne, done. Okay, Yvonne fixed it. Thanks. Okay.
So, oh, thank you. It's so kind. So that was actually a video of the senior management team of Taylor's, including Professor Mushtaq, that was part of the team as well. And I guess from the video itself, it shows that Epic Homes is really about, is where we built homes in 3 days. But we realized as well, I want to just tell you that Epic Homes is really more than just building homes. We found out that along the way, it's more than many things more than the obvious. building homes. It's more than just DIY skills. You guys recognize that handsome man? Okay. It's more than having immense power in your hands, because you're going out there and you're building homes with your bare hands, or between your legs too. It's more than solidarity and teamwork, because many people come together to work hard to put a home for a family. Sometimes awkward proportions of solidarity and teamwork. It's more than that new profile picture on Facebook. It's more than just working with the Orang Asli, because we built homes for the Orang Asli of Malaysia. Building relationships, understanding their burdens through the relationships that we've built, and easing them by building a platform for their future. It's more than that moment of enlightenment, because people find that by doing something that they've never imagined themselves doing in their life, it changes things. It helps them realize different things about themselves. Finding hope in the process, and at the same time conquering their fears. It's more than the beautiful creatures or that handsome jungle beast. I should have catered my slides more towards engineering students. I only see 2 girls. I should have known. Yeah, we get a lot of different people, not just who are attractive from the outside, but more importantly from the inside as well. It's more than just hard work, the high fives, the ice cream after a hot sunny day, and hugs, lots of hugs, love. It's more than that epic feeling of completing a house and then making it a home. Epic Homes, we're more than a charity, because a lot of people think that just because we do good things, that automatically makes us a charity. So we're more than a charity building houses, but we're a community of people, of extraordinary people, individuals. And at the end of the day, what Epic Homes is, it's a decision to inspire, mobilize, and empower, and it's a lifestyle. And this is what Epic Homes is to the people that has joined us, to the people that has been part of this from the beginning. And that's basically what Epic Homes is. So I just wanted to share with you what Epic Homes is. And at the same time, these are some of the partners and supporters that we've been privileged to work with, including some of the big brands like AirAsia, like GE Global. We work with the Prime Minister's Department, with Pemandu. We've worked with different social enterprises, Dulux, ExxonMobil. We've been privileged because of Epic Homes. And we've been covered by many media outlets as well. Not just local, but also on BBC London, on German radio station. So this little adventure of ours, this little project of ours called Epic Homes has brought us to many places as well. And that's really where we are today. But I didn't want to come here to just tell you about everything that we are today, but I want to tell you about how we got there and why this started in the first place, and how it expanded into so many things from just wanting to build a house. So before that, I just want you to look at this, okay? And it's really getting your first button right. And the most important button, the first button, is why? Why? A lot of us, entrepreneurs, businessmen, or people of generation, we're very caught up with the what. We get very excited about the what, about how things are done. We get very excited about things like that. But I think we often forget the most important question, the essence of what something becomes, or essence of how it's been done, or who is doing it. It comes from a why. And this is extremely important, because if you don't get your why button first, then everything else will be kind of messed up. So the reason why we're using buttons as an analogy, or looking at shirt, is what will happen if you get your first button wrong? Anybody? Easy answer. There's no trick question. No? Okay, so I guess you guys are a bit shy. But basically, if you...
It's gonna be Missy.
Sorry?
Missy.
If you get it wrong,
Yeah.
what will happen to the whole shirt?
It won't look neat.
It won't be neat.
Yeah.
Right. So it won't be proper. The shirt, you won't actually have a proper shirt. You won't be able to go out like that because it will be all over the place. And that's exactly why, the importance of the why. Exactly why we need to understand why. Before we start anything, we need to ask why. And the challenge about why is because it's usually something that's not really manifested in reality. You don't see it. It's not tangible. And that scares us. A lot of us are scared about things that are invisible, about things that we have not seen with our own eyes before. But that's exactly the thing that we need to spend time and put aside to ask ourselves. Because if not, then the what, the who, the when, the where, the how, these things will not come to pass. And if it does, it won't last very long. It won't be proper. So I just wanted to share with you a little bit about my background because I founded Epic Homes together with a couple of friends. And Epic Homes is pretty dear to me as well. And I just want you to understand this journey that I took and why I did some of the things that I did. Of course, some of the reasons were clearer in retrospect, in current day, when I look back and say, okay, that's kind of why as well, to why I started this. But this was basically my life before Epic. Was there another picture? There you go. Yeah, it's a bit weird. But this was what I was doing when I was studying, or the many things that I was doing. I had to support myself through university, and because of that, I needed money, right? And one of the easiest way to make money was modeling, and a job like that, just getting painted and going out there for 10 minutes would get me about 600 ringgit. Being put on a poster can get you about 3,000 bucks. And that was basically, that is as bad as things can be. I don't really share this with many people, to be very honest with you. And the poster on the right, with me holding money, that's a recent poster. I took a stock image 4 or 5 years ago and they recently just put it up. But I think it also represents where I was. So the why I was doing what I was doing, how I ended up doing things like this, was really just for money. And it was good money, of course. And yeah, and so that was at the end of my final year in the School of Communications in TLS. We weren't in this campus back then. And the reason why I took communications was because I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. I didn't know what was my purpose or why I existed. And I thought, okay, I'll get a degree, something that's broad enough so that it will determine to me what I'm going to do in my life. Again, to determine why I exist. And I thought, okay, if I get a broad range, then somehow or rather I'll be able to pick and choose at the end of the day. And I was quite wrong about that because at the end of my education, I was even more confused. It's not Taylor's, but of course it was my perspective in life. Or maybe it's Taylor's, right? So what happened was, during that time, I said that I wanted to actually become a jet ski operator or a tour guide at an island somewhere because my passion was going outdoors. I love the outdoors. I love rock climbing. I love taking part in adventure races where we do kayaking, swimming, running. And I love the outdoors. And so I thought I'll follow my passion, what I want to do, follow what I like to do, and I will end up being a tour guide, at least to find myself. Around that time, I came across this village where, with a bunch of friends. And we just came across this Orang Asli village at that time. And this was really right before I graduated. And it was just a small little visit. And there we were, and we thought maybe we could help them a little bit because I've never done any social work in my life before. And we asked around and say, hey, what can we help you with? And the Orang Asli said, no, everything's fine. And we went back 2-3 times because we were quite desperate to at least do something, to find some meaning in our lives. And at the third visit, we realized that there wasn't a toilet in this village. We asked the man, oh, we need to use the toilet, where do we go? And he said, oh, okay, you just go out the house, you see the bushes over there, you go over there, then you do it there. So we're thinking, what? There's no toilets here. And so immediately we jumped on the opportunity and said, can we build you a toilet? And at the same time, we looked outside and said, maybe you need a paint job as well, because many of your houses weren't painted. And so that's how I kind of started with this thing. It was really just a little accident out there, and it's just a realization that, okay, there's a chance to do something. And so we gathered together, a bunch of us friends, and we asked ourselves, how do we go about this? Because we've never done this before. And we said, let's put it out on Facebook and see who comes. And I was actually very cynical and very skeptical about this whole thing, because I think if we go back to the last slide, then that really kind of defined the depth of me as a human being. And I thought, I was quite cynical of who would want to help me, because if I saw this online, I'll probably click ignore. And to our surprise, when we put it out there, in 1.5 weeks, we got 64 people that turned up. And we got people from different countries as well, not just Malaysians. And I thought I had everything figured out, where I thought I had certain friends that I knew would join such a program, people that regularly volunteers with WWF, with World Vision, with SPCA. These sort of people would probably turn up, but they didn't turn up. And I was quite disappointed. But at the same time, I was very, very surprised, because there were so many people that I didn't know, strangers, that turned up as well. And so it was a great event. We made balloons, we built that toilet, we painted some houses, and it was a great success. But it was really just a project. We call it Project EPIC then. EPIC stands for Extraordinary People Impacting Community. But there was 2 realizations to what made this so meaningful to me. Number one was the realization that everybody has an intrinsic desire to serve. Or rather, an intrinsic desire to want to know what is your purpose as a human being. To be useful, or to be valuable. And because of that, we are all hungry to make an impact somewhere. But the problem is that we want to do more than just put money into a box. We want to do more than just put it into a box, donate, and then hope for the best. We want to be able to work with our own hands to see impact, real impact. But the problem is we don't know where to do it, how to do it, who to do it with, what to do. And number 2 was more on a personal level, where I realized that this was a great activity. This was extremely fun. Not only did we get to meet so many people, but we did something, we had so much fun. And I asked myself, why didn't I do something like this? Why was I just so caught up with everything that I like to do, the parties and drinking and all that sort of stuff? And I realized that the reason why I didn't do anything was because I felt alone. I felt that the amount of impact I can make as an individual would not really amount to much, so I wouldn't try at all. I mean, it's totally logical. As one person, I can do so much, and in my immediate circle of friends, there weren't many people that cared about the things I did, or rather, they didn't show at least that they did. And so I realized that was why this whole thing made sense to me. And I continued this journey for the next 3 months, and I got into another project called Voice Your Choice, where we did voters registration, because we realized that one of the reasons why we saw a lot of these problems out there with Orang Asli families was not because people weren't just helping them, but it's also because of policy. Some policy that were not being governance and policy, things that were not implemented properly, governance that were not done according to the law. And because of that, many of these things were happening out there. And we could just paint and build toilets for the rest of our lives, but if we were not to do anything in governance and policy, then these things won't change. And so we realized that people of our generation were quite apathetic in terms of politics, or we were. So we thought we'll start a voters registration campaign where we're totally non-partisan, we're not part of a political party, and we'll see how many people we can get. And so we went out there, just threw out a huge target, saying we wanted 2 million voters, and in a year. Well, it ended as a success, but we didn't hit 2 million. We got 146,000 people in 8 months. And because of that, we became the first assistant registrar, or rather entity that can register people without the election commission or being a political party. So we were the first NGO in the history of Malaysia to get that status. But really through that whole experience, I realized that how we did it was we set up different booths in different malls, places where there were high traffic, and we will set it up and get youth to man these booths. You know, and the way we promoted it was not like a typical political party, but we did it the way we thought that the youth would like it to be. And also, I was quite skeptical, but the fact that we opened booths in 10 different states by different people, people that we've never met before, registering people over their weekends, was a testament to me that I think there were people truly want to do something to impact the community. And because of that, we continued to move on as well. And we can just skip to the next one. And so we came across this house, my friends and I. There was 4 of us doing this. There was an accountant, there was a graphic designer, and a person from graphic design and advertising background. There was me, a fresh grad in communications and media management, and there was a banker who was our mentor at that time. And we came across this house. At first we thought it was a storeroom, but I think we were shocked to find out that a man actually lived in that house. And immediately as a group of us, we said, okay, let's raise money for this person, let's build him a house. That was our immediate response to the whole thing. But after further questioning ourselves, asking why do we ask, why did a man have to live like this in the first place? Why wasn't he helping himself? Why wasn't the government doing anything about this? And that's when we realized that it wasn't really as simple as just building the guy a house and solving everything in his life. I realized that the house was really just a symptom of a larger problem. What exactly that was, we didn't know. But we realized that if we just spend a weekend, take out a survey form and ask this guy, tell me, point A, B, C, D, why you're poor, you won't get the answer that you're looking for. But instead, we realized that we first need to build relationships with this person, or with the people there. And then only through that we'll be able to learn what exactly are the issues that they're facing. So that's when we told ourselves, we need to create something where we're able to provide a home, but at the same time create an opportunity for us to come together so that we can show our care to them. And that's when we came up with this idea to make building homes as easy as IKEA or Lego. Because frankly speaking, that was the only experience we had. Being from a communication background, I mean, IKEA furniture, that's as advanced as my skills were. I think the rest was about the same or even worse as well. The reason why we wanted to do that is so that we could build a house together with them, build it side by side together with them. Because if the main objective was building relationships, we would basically just take money, pass it to a contractor. If we were to do the things the way we wanted to do it previously, we'll just raise some money, pass it to a contractor, get a contractor to build the house. We'll come back 2 months later, and then we'll go up to the man and say, do you like your house? I paid for it. Now can we be friends? That doesn't exactly solve the main objective for us. But we thought it'd be really cool if we could just build side by side together with them so that they can see how much we care. So that after it will kickstart a relationship together, as then hopefully we'll be able to find out what exactly the issues were. And on top of that, we wanted this house to be built within 3 days, because we wanted to make it possible for ordinary people such as yourselves to be able to do it without needing to drop out of college or university or get fired from your job. But of course, the answer was, we went around, we asked a lot of people, and a lot of people say, no, it's not possible at all. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel, so we asked, is there pre-existing models that we can follow where ordinary people can put up these houses in a short span of time, and the house quality will be great? They say no such thing. So we went to the engineer, and the engineer says, are you crazy? You know, this is insane. The contractor said you cannot rely on the ordinary people. You know, if the girls, they break their fingernail and then they cry, and then we'll delay the whole project. The lawyers were saying, no, you'll definitely get sued for doing such a thing. You know, risk management consultants were saying the risk is too high. You know, don't bother. But to us, we knew why we wanted to do this, and that kept us going for 8 months till the first prototype went up. Where finally I met a friend's father over Chinese New Year or some dinner, and I told him about this, and it was a good thing that he was a boss of a development company, and he said, okay, why don't you see me in my office? And he brought me down. We sat down, and he brought his engineer, his architect, and his contractor, set them down there as well, and he said, okay, this guy wants to tell you what he and his friends wants to do. And so we basically told them why we wanted to do this and what we were actually trying to achieve. And all of them also said, boss, cannot do lah, you know, you're crazy. And good thing he was the boss. So he said, shut up, you just go and do. I think it's possible. So it was because of that the first house came up. You know, previously, although I say it very confidently now because we've already built 22 homes, at that time I didn't think it was possible either, but it was crazy enough and the reason was good enough for us to just give it a shot. So that was the first prototype that we came up with. And through the building of this house, so it's a very, very simple house. It was about probably 100 square feet or less. That's the size of a room now that we built in an entire house. But through that, what we got was, we got this picture, this exact picture itself. And people started to believe. You know, this was the first picture that we got. And we put it into a proposal and we sent it out to different grants and we just showed it to people and people said, wow, you know, this is really possible. And that's really the why as how Epic Homes started in the first place. So somewhere along the way, we just wanted to do one home, and we completed that, and that was great. And later on, we got a little bit more support to do a few more houses, and we thought, why not? You know, we can help more families as well. But somewhere along the way, we got connected with Pemandu. And everyone knows who Pemandu is? So Pemandu is with the Prime Minister's Department. They're the Performance and Delivery Unit. So basically, they are the one that coordinates all the resources between different agencies in the government. All the agencies, actually. And so they're the main strategic arm for them. And we were contacted by them, and they just wanted to shoot a video of how great the youth are doing in Malaysia. And that was the objective of the meeting. And we met up with them, and we told them that there is fantastic value in not just putting up these houses, but at that time we already built 5 or 6 homes, and we said there's tremendous value in just connecting people from the urban areas to the rural areas, where people are exposed to different mindsets and different cultures and different lifestyles. And people's lives were being changed, and at the same time, the lives of the villagers as well were reaching a different stage of development because of the guidance from people from the outside. So the why of building relationships, yet again, it wasn't just about building homes. And at that time, I met up with the director, and because he was so compelling, he said, why don't you join the GTP labs? So they held a lab over 6 weeks, a 6-week period, where some of my teammates and I got to sit down together with government officers, some very senior ranking people, to work out the government policy or the government plan for the next 4 or 5 years. And again, you know, it was people, they were caught up with why it was worth risking their ego or their position or whatever by just bringing in a bunch of young people. And through that lab, we found out that there was an even greater challenge. And then that was that 82% of all orang asli in Malaysia are in need of housing aid. Out of which about 75% of them are recorded as poor, and so that means that they are earning less than 700 ringgit a month. And 31% of them are hardcore poor, and that's about 400 something and below a month. And that's where we realized that, let's do a little bit more and see how it goes. And so since then, we have built 22 homes. 22 homes, and we've worked together with more than 500 different people. Thanks. And so I just wanted to share with you about the Epic Homes. I think the Epic Home module, we call this the version 1. I guess this will be something that excites you. So I worked together with close to 50 engineers and architects on this design. Starting with the first one that you saw earlier. Every time we built one home, we would create a brief to extract strengths, weaknesses, see what we would like to keep, what we would like to work on. And we create a brief, and then we'll bring in a team of architects and engineers who work fully pro bono. And it resulted in the version 1, which we achieved at house number 8. So the Epic Home really is, it uses a modular system where if you look at each room as a square, right, based on the size of the family, we'll know how many squares to give them. So previously, or rather how things are being done at the moment is, if you look at, if you want to scale up anything, any initiative, the best way to do it is to standardize different things. And this was being done for housing as well. So you commonly see a 3-bedroom, 1 toilet, 1 living room house being issued out throughout the country as a low-cost house. And that's great. You say, wow, that's better than no house, of course. But what we found was this. When we go to the ground, we face 2 extremes, especially with orang asli families as well. One is families that are too small to qualify for houses. So it's a 3-bedroom, 1 toilet, 1 living room. You got 3 people in your family, you probably won't qualify for a house because the cost does not justify the amount of life that there. At the same time, the other extreme, you can get up to 15, up to 20 people living in the same home or part of the same family. And they immediately qualify for a house, no doubt. But the problem is, you give them the exact same size house, you take them off the list, you're putting them in another set of social issues as well. So that was one of the things that we observed. And based on that, we realized that it needed to be modular, where the house would accommodate the size of the family. On top of that, we also observed the village layout and the land. And you realize that the village doesn't have a grid-like plan, right? So where you have houses all spaced out properly next to each other, everything is perfect. No such thing, right? You may have sometimes narrow pieces of land, zigzag. You may have a tree in a way that they don't want to cut because the spirits living in there. There may be a tree because they just like the tree, like to see the flowers. And we realized that you can't have a standard house. So that's how we came up with the Epic Home, where theoretically you can actually move the rooms, the modules around like Lego, based on the size of the family and the land as well. And on top of that, it's designed in a way where we actually have like an IKEA manual of how to build the house from A to Z. Where the idea is to be able to pass it to you, and you can actually just read it and build a home with your friends. And yeah, we wanted it to be done within a short span of time, so that you guys could do it together with us. Currently, these are the ones that we typically build. There's a 2-module home, the 4-module home, and the 6-module home. And this is based on what we've seen on the ground. But, of course, this structure itself, it doesn't only need to be used for homes, it can also be used for community center, library. The function of the place could differ based on what the user wants to do with it. Next. But at the end of the day, this is where we actually want to bring it. This is our ultimate dream, where we're able to snap a picture of the land, right? and then sit down together with the orang asli person or anybody that's going to own the house, and be able to now just swipe out different components of this house. Could be doors, walls, windows, floor, roof, and at the end of it, so if it fits, it says green. If it doesn't fit, it says red. And at the end of the whole thing, you click order, we'll deliver it to you, and you can just set it up. You can set up the whole house. And that's really where we want to go with this whole thing. And I'll tell you why we want to do this. So one of the things that we realized when we were working with the Orang Asli people, so I told you earlier that we want to build relationships together with them for a particular reason. And the reason is to find out what exactly they're facing. And we realized that there's similarly to the house, there's not a one-size-fits-all answer for why Orang Aslis or the poor will live in their own situation. One thing that we realized that is poverty is not just financial status, but was more so a mindset. Poverty was a mindset, and that's something we learned in the 4 years of doing this. And one of the differentiating factors of a person that has and does not have is the power of choice. The power of choice. So a poor person or a person with no money will probably has less choices or no choice at all, one choice. A person with more money will have more options or more power to make different choices as well. So that was really the mindset that we discovered. And if you look at poverty as a mindset and you want the house, a low-cost house, to solve that issue, then one of the things that we realized was this. If we were to be issuing out standard houses to everybody and giving it to them just because they qualify for it because they're poor, then the very thing that is sheltering them is actually a perpetual reminder that they received this house because they were poor enough. That's one. And two, because they did not have a choice over the house that they are living in. Everybody else has the same house. Sure, we can argue that it's better than no house. But what if we could make a difference? What if we could also address the intrinsic needs of people as well? And so in our experiences, when we designed the houses, we got together with the families, we sit down together with them and we told them, and we treated them like clients, like how you guys would probably be doing as well. Where you be sitting down with them, with your clients, asking them, what do you want? What do you need? You know, and so they would say, I want my kitchen to be here, or I want to orientate my house here, or I want a certain color for my house. So we gave them a couple of options as well. And after the house is being built, of course with their effort, the level of ownership is really, really different. Compared to the houses that's just been given out to them like that, and the houses that they actually built with their own hands, and they actually had a choice over how they wanted it to be. Not only was it in maintaining the house, but after that, the level of confidence was also much, much higher. And so if we look at that, or we looked at that and we realized that if we were to build a house, we don't just want to build a house that shelters person physically, but we also want the house to be a beginning for a transformation of a person as well. And if you listen to me closely, that situation where we don't really have a choice, or they didn't really have a choice over the houses that they got to pick, that's the exact same situation that we are also in. By we, I am talking about middle, upper, or middle income people, where you graduate and you have to just buy whatever you can afford. Only the rich can afford a custom-made house. Only the rich can sit down together, architect, and say, I want my house to look like this, and I don't want it to look like the neighbors. Whereas the rest of us, we go into debt immediately. We have to buy a house, sometimes a house that we don't even need at this present moment. So the idea of this is that it's totally modular, and you can build as you go. As your career progresses, as your family progresses, that's how the house will grow. So you can probably do the ideal house that you want, but you can just order one room first. You build that one room, you get a girlfriend that wants to move in, you get another room. You want to add a toilet, you add a toilet, and then you build as you go, basically, as you progress. So it sounds a bit far-fetched. And honestly, at this point in time, I don't know how to get there. But we're slowly moving towards that area. But I know why we want to do this, and why this is our dream. I think we can skip this. Or maybe you can go back, actually. So let me tell you about the pricing of Epic Homes. One of the things that we realized was, so it's 40,000 ringgit per Epic Home, regardless of house size, right? So where we build the home, and whatever funds that's balanced gets rolled forward, because when we go out there, we don't know the logistics cost, and we also don't know how big the families will be that we'll be building for. But last year it was actually at 50,000 ringgit, and let me tell you why. And we moved it down to 40,000 ringgit. Last year at 50,000 ringgit, it made all sense. It was very logical. So I think in problem solving, and not necessarily just as an entrepreneur where you face these sort of things, but I think in your little projects as well, you will come to such decisions. And pricing for us, we put it at 50,000 ringgit because our operations was part of this. But one of the issues that we realized was that 50,000 ringgit was too far outside the bracket of many CSR programs, and that was typically where we were getting our money from. Companies would have CSR budgets, but even the biggest companies as well were breaking their record in terms of CSR. I mean, that's another question you ask, like big companies as well, shouldn't have, they have more money a year to spend than just less than 100,000 ringgit. But we realized that companies typically would only have this much. And they were earning maybe from 35 to 40,000. So at 50,000 ringgit, while logically it would protect it would protect me, it would protect the office, the people that were working with me, that was holding us back dramatically from people approaching us. And I mean, at this scale, at 10,000 ringgit, it's not exactly that much. But we only got 4 homes last year. I mean, although it was great big companies, but we only got 4 companies that came together as. This year itself, I think one of the factors for the increase is also because of the pricing that we've recently put. And that's at 40,000 ringgit, where most companies can afford around this bracket. Yeah, so far we've actually fundraised more than double the amount of houses that we built, or actually 3 or 4 times more already than the following year. Next. Yeah. So here's something called the Builder Training Program, and earlier when we started this, okay, I think at any point in this whole thing, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. So one of the things that is vital to the entire Epic Homes movement is you guys, is the public coming on board to work together with us to make it happen. And we're very adamant about it because our main objective is not the homes, the main objective is the building of relationships through the building of homes. And we wanted to make it possible for anybody to do it. And so we created the Builder Training Program called the BTP, where there's different rankings in our builder community. So if you were to join us, then there's different rankings. There's the recruit, there's the rookie, there's the apprentice, there's the specialist, and there's the master builder. But the idea was that we make it as accessible as possible for anybody to build. And at the same time, to be able to filter through different people and also give people a choice and how they would like to advance and go up the ranks. But the idea is the more specialists and master builders we have, then the more houses we can actually build simultaneously. We also came out with the Builder Basics. Yeah. So this is pictures from the Builder Basics course. And in this journey as a social entrepreneur, so we started as just wanting to build houses, and we just wanted to do it as a project. And later on, we found out that we actually needed to survive. We needed to eat as well. And so this was one of the byproducts of that need. Starting with wanting to build homes, to now training people as well. And through this, we were also getting a lot of public people, not just coming in to build homes, learning to build homes, but they were just coming in to learn the basics in DIY or building. Yeah, so that's people learning how to put up a scaffold. How many have actually built a structure of any sort? Yeah. Right. So I mean, it's a need. Way back in history, people could build their own homes. How come today we have more knowledge, but we can do less? And this was one of the needs that we saw as well. Not only did we want to build more capacity to build more homes, but we realized as well, as a developing country, a lot of us, we take things for granted, you know. What do you guys do when, let's say, something breaks down your house? Plumbing, let's say plumbing, a leaking pipe. How many of you would actually call somebody and pay somebody? The rest? You never fixed anything before. How many of you actually fix it yourself? Okay. And so that one of the issues was we found that actually many people, there are many things that you didn't need a technician for, but you could actually do it yourself, especially in becoming a developing country, because we realized that as we move towards becoming a developing country, there's also the minimum wage cap. On top of that, that would result in wages being higher, and that means that the cheap labor that you usually get to fix stuff will no longer be very cheap anymore. So if you look at the US, Germany, Scandinavian countries, a lot of these people, the general public, has a very high level of technical skills, because the fact is they have to do it all themselves. And this was one of the needs that we saw as well in the process. And so we started something called the Builder Basics Workshop, where it wasn't just to fuel the Epic community, but at the same time, it was a class that wanted to give something of value to give to people. There was a product itself. And so far, we've done 13 classes this year, and most of the classes has been fully participated in. Yeah. So basically, people come, they learn drilling, hammering, sawing. You learn what fasteners are. How many of you know what fasteners are? Great. So yeah, your nuts, your bolts, your screws, your nails. But a lot of us can't tell the difference between a timber and a concrete nail. A lot of us don't know what different classifications of screws are. What are self-tapping screws? What's Phillips head? What's flathead? And things like that. And at the same time, people also got to build stuff and bring it back. Yeah. Right. So that's the builder training program. We also wanted to gamify the whole experience as well, so that people will feel part of this whole movement. So on top of that, and how everything comes together is through sorry, I was about to say that engineers love this sort of stuff. I've had the privilege of working with many engineers, and I love working with them because they like to put stuff together into processes as well. And this is basically a chart of how we get different stakeholders and different types of resource, not just internal resources, but external resources as well. So this is process engineering, where we allocated like different channels where different stakeholders, such as public individuals to corporates, NGOs and governments could come in to contribute to Epic Homes in order to scale this up to the next level. So all the way from the identification of families where we activate not just the government, or not only just the government, but also other NGOs, to the consultation and confirmation, where we've come up with the system where the moment they input the information of a family in site, we're able to identify it on our system on Google Maps, and then we can send our master builder to the site to consult the families, how big they want their houses to be, what color, what orientation. And we also have a crowdfunding platform that were developed online, where people can actually raise funds if they want to build it themselves. The training and builders, where you guys will all have your own dashboards as well, so you can track the number of houses you've built, the different badges that you have, the different skills you've accumulated, and what your assessment is in the workshops that you've done. And finally, the building of a home and the completion of it and the update of the family that you've built for. Because accountability is extremely important. But we didn't want an extremely big organization where or rather we wanted to systemize everything and want to make it as lean as possible. But it doesn't really just end there. But we created two things in the process to achieve the why of Epic Homes. And one of that is the Pay It Forward program. Next. Yeah. So the Pay It Forward program is where recipients, let's click next. Yeah. The people that receive these houses, because a lot of them can't afford these houses, but at the same time we didn't want them to, or basically the Pay It Forward program is where people, in order to pay for their houses, they pay through sweat equity by building 3 homes in the process, 1 for themselves and 2 more for their neighbors. And the reason why we did this was one of the most serious issues in terms of dealing with charity. And that's the handout mentality. A lot of us, if we keep handing out things for free, people at the end of it will become spoiled. They'll take things for granted and they'll just end up become consumers. They'll just sit there and say, when's the next house going to come to me? Or when's the next basket of food is going to come to me? And we didn't want to instill that. Instead, we wanted a sense of appreciation as well. And so that's why we came up with this. So never mind they don't pay money, but instead they pay with something that is more precious to them, which is time and energy. That's something that we realized as well. At the same time, we use this opportunity to discover and nurture and train champions in each village, where in the middle of building these 3 homes, we'll be training them to become builders in the process so that they can build all these other houses and eventually so that they can also help the other villagers as well. So this provides them with job opportunities. As a specialist and as a master builder, you actually get cash incentives for carrying out that level of volunteerism. Somewhere from 450 to 1,000 plus per project. And ultimately it's so that we can empower the Orang Aslis to take care of their own issues, their own problems. So that's one of the areas. And next. Yeah, and the next would be community cooperation, where one of the things that we realized that we were doing in just building relationships, there was a very practical reason to it. And what we were trying to do was to decentralize how a typical NGO works. So normally how an NGO would work would be this, where, so on one hand, I have the public with resource, with volunteers, and on the other hand, I have beneficiaries. So right now how charity works is the resource is passed to me, the middleman, and I would then have to go and find people that need it. But what happens in this model is that I'm very limited with the things that I can do, and at the same time it's also slower, and my ability to scale is also limited unless of course I standardize. So unless I become an NGO, just focus on houses, or just focus on education, or just focus on something. So I think for us, we believe that if we become that sort of organization, then we reach the hammer and nail complex, where if you have a hammer, if that's the tool that you have, then everything is a nail. Suddenly everybody needs education, everybody needs houses. But what we realized was when we went to the ground, through the building of relationships, everybody had different issues. People are people. You can't look at Orang Asli as just Orang Asli, and all Orang Asli has the same problem. No such thing. There were many things that could not be solved as well. So we realized that we couldn't be the middleman, but instead we needed to connect the resource straight to the people that needed it as well. And how we do it was through the house. So the house was really is just a starting point. It's just a tool to bring these two people together. But through a very emotional, very significant activity, firstly for the volunteers, where they're doing something they've never imagined themselves doing. They're having a time of a lifetime. It's a story, it's an epic story that they go back and tell their friends about. And at the same time, for the villagers, there's a reason to why they should open up their village to strangers to come in. Because if you were just to bring strangers in, they'd be like, what the heck are all these people doing here? And so the house was just created to bring these two together so that eventually we decentralize how it works, where I don't have to stand in the middle of two, but instead we bring them together where they can work on whatever they're being faced with. And we've created a web system that will be launched at the end of this month, where it basically tracks and different solutions or different problems, and be a portal where people can learn from one another. So we have built 22 homes. That means we have 22 groups or corporations of builder and family, where now they're looking at different things. Education, some wants to learn computers, some, this lady came up to me and said, I want you to teach my boys how to talk with girls better. You know, and so you have unique things like this, right? But as an organization, you can't solve these things. You can't set up organizations just to teach people how to talk to girls. But as people, you're agile, you're able to solve this issue, right? So, yeah. So that's pretty much what Epic Homes is at the moment, and what it's expanding into. There's a lot more that is growing out of, but every single thing that has been created in the process stems from the why. And the why is really what drives us from the beginning. When there is nothing, it's the why that motivates us, that will keep us going. You know, and it's the why that will help kind of create the path of what is being created and how we go about it. And I think that is really key to entrepreneurship. But not just entrepreneurship, like I said earlier, being an entrepreneur is not just, you know, the typical start a business of your own. But really it's a mindset that you have, that in whatever area, whatever sector that you're in, being engineers or even being students, being entrepreneurial is pivotal to your success as a person as well. Because at the end of the day, it's really just problem solving. So you guys at the end of the day should really, really, I think, realize that at the end of the day, it's not whether you're entrepreneurs or not, but asking yourself why you're doing what you're doing and why you want to do the next thing that you're going to do. Because that will define everything else. That's the first button. Yeah. So, thank you.
Thanks, Justin. And as usual, if you guys have any questions for him, please raise your hand and Yvonne will pass the mic around. I know for a fact that Jacqueline wants to reach out to the Orang Asli community, and I think she's looking forward to meeting you.
Great. Yeah, we can chat later.
Yes, or she can.
Or
ask
if you have a
now.
question now. Yeah, I think one of the things that I forgot to cover is what exactly is the business side. So we're a social enterprise, right? So we have the social side of building homes, but what exactly is the business side? What we do is we've turned the building of homes into a team building activity that companies can do. So we're telling companies, instead of playing team building games in hotel rooms, imaginary things, go outside there, do something that's real, and at the same time help people. So you kill two birds with one stone. So companies, they sponsor the house, but on top of that, they pay a service fee for us to organize the whole thing for them, and that's how we sustain the team. That's our social business model at the moment.
Johnson, do you see social entrepreneurship becoming a viable form of employment? Because, you know, we keep on reading about specifically the millennials people who are born between 1980, 1990, having different expectations from the business. I personally have seen this in the graduates that graduated, let's say last year, where quite a number of the best graduates, they say that the job that they're looking for does not exist. So do you see that social entrepreneurship picking up in this part of the world and being a sustainable way of sustaining people and at the same time doing good and doing well for themselves?
Yeah, I think we also need to define what exactly is social entrepreneurship. So it's a buzzword. So I've been doing this for the last 4 years, but social entrepreneurship was something that I discovered only 1.5 years into doing what we were doing. And I think personally, I personally believe that what social entrepreneurship is really entrepreneurship at its core. And to whatever that we do, whatever businesses that's been set up, it needs to benefit or give value in a certain way to community. You know, whether it's your paying customer or whether it's a customer that can't be paid, that can't pay for your service or your product. I think at the core of entrepreneurship, it needs to be social, because that's where your market is. Is it picking up in Malaysia or this part of the world? Definitely, because I think a lot of us in Malaysia especially, we see a lot of problems, and what we do is we run away from the problems. We say Australia has it figured out, so we go to Australia, or the US or the UK has it figured out, we'll go over there, everything's much better. But what you don't see is that with more problems come a lot more opportunities as well. And that means so much space, so much avenues for you to manifest your creativity, and at the same time a lot of allowances to do such things. And so I think if we're looking at where Malaysia is situated, we're in Southeast Asia, we're all developing, we're not yet developed. So being a developing country, there's so many issues that needs to be solved, but at the same time you have tremendous access to not just human resource, where everyone's, I think they have, they're in the middle of two worlds, one of the developing world, and some people who have had the privilege of education, such as in Taylor's, would have a developed world mindset. You know, so you have access to this talent, and at the same time, a lot of countries are coming in to pump a lot of funds into the countries around this region. And I think a lot more investment firms and things are now looking into social entrepreneurship and taking it very, very seriously. Because I think they were talking about 7 billion people in the world, and 3 billion, the market of 3 billion, the ones on top of the pyramid, that's already saturated. Whereas the 4 billion is still an untapped market. So the question is, how do you make your product and services accessible to these people? If you're able to do that, then you've got a huge market, a huge pie to work from. So it will definitely be sustainable at that point in time. Yeah. Oh, need my help? Don't worry. Yeah.
Actually, I wanted to ask you, why exactly the Orang Asli? Is it because you wanted to save the native Malaysians, or is there any other reason?
So, Epic, before Epic Homes, Epic, extraordinary people impacting community, it changed my life. It awakened me to that 2 reasons, and it showed me that I wasn't alone. And through that, I developed this belief that it's really not about doing massive, actions or being, not only, if you look at today in changing the world, we always define world changers as Gandhi or Mother Teresa or people like that who's done huge acts. I think what that's done is it's made everybody else feel very small. It's intimidated many people. So I believe that really true sustainable change can happen only if everybody chips in. So it's about many, many people doing tiny but purposeful actions to make epic impact happen. And that is really what I'm passionate about. funny, but I did not touch on that. That was part of my notes. And that is why I do this, right? And Epic Homes was something that I discovered in the process. It was a need at that point in time. And so why Orang Asli? I think in terms of that is simply because that was the first people group that we came across. And one of the things that I learned in doing this is, you can research and all that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, it's a very simple belief that where there's a need, you meet it there. You don't ask who needs it the most and things like that, but if you can do something there and then, just do it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. No more questions?
If you have no more questions, then I would like you to join me again in thanking Johnson for a very inspiring